Hey everyone, Dr. Michael Risher here, and I want to talk to you today about some banded hamstring exercises. Now, it's a well-known fact that having strong hamstrings makes you a lot faster. If you look at the top sprinters and power athletes in the world, their deadlift or hamstring strength essentially to body weight ratio is much higher than the normal humans. This makes you a much more explosive, much better athlete. The other thing that I want to point out is that hamstring strength can prevent a lot of injuries. The Nordic Hamstring Curl, which I'm going to show you in a minute, they just did a study with that where they saw a population that trained with the Nordic Hamstring Curl versus a population that did not. And the population that trained with the Nordic Hamstring Curl had a much lower incidence of hamstring injuries. I use a hashtag from time to time that says hamstrings save lives, and I really think that's a little bit of hyperbole, but it is true. It makes you a better athlete and less prone to injury. These next three exercises that I show you are great to use as a warm-up or to implement in your training. I want to tell you that you need to be careful with the bands that you choose. For the Nordic Hamstring Curl, you need to use a heavy band to start. For the other two, I would recommend using a lighter band to start until you gain knowledge and understanding of the exercise. I hope you enjoy these videos.
All right, so we've done a lot of work with rehab exercises using the set for set bands, but what I want to work on today is a little bit of a strengthening exercise. So what we're going to do is a Nordic hamstring curl with a band assistance. If you can progress to a lighter band, definitely do that, but it's a very difficult exercise. So I'm going to use my gray set for set band because it is the heaviest band, gives me the most assistance on this Nordic hamstring curl. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set yourself up in a rack like this. I have a barbell pinned here against the rack, and I also have an ab mat. Yoga mat works really well as well. And this is for your knees. This is so that your feet don't fly up as you're doing the Nordic hamstring curl. From here, I'm going to wrap the band around the rack here. Good, nice and tight. And then I'm going to set my feet underneath the barbell and put my knees on the ab mat right here, and then the band goes overhead. This is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. You have to keep your hips locked out. If you start to bend your hips, that changes the exercise just slightly, makes it a little bit more glute dominant. But if you keep your glutes locked, this is really going to hit the hamstrings very hard. So band over the shoulders. I'm holding it here just so it stays in place. I'm going to lean forward as far as I can, keeping my hips forward, and then pull with my hamstrings back up. The band is going to assist you most of the way, but as I get to the top, right about here, the band tension ends, and I have to kick in just with my hamstrings to finish that pull. You want to go as low as you can while still maintaining good form. So as soon as my hips break back, that's no longer the exercise that you want. It's still something, but that's not the Nordic hamstring curl. You really want to make sure that your hips stay fully extended. You go as far out as you can and then pull yourself back up. I like doing this in around sets of 8 to 10. If you start to go too much, then the hamstrings really fatigue. They can start to cramp up. You want to make sure that you're doing enough and kind of easing yourself into it because it is a very targeted hamstring movement. Start with a thick band. If you want to progress to lighter bands, go ahead and do that, but really make sure that you have it under control. Make sure that it's not too much tension, too much load on your hamstrings before you progress to that lighter band. Next hamstring exercise, we're going to use the green set for set band. You can use a heavier band if you feel comfortable, but we're going to make it single leg so that you only have to use the green band. It is a single leg RDL or good morning, kind of depending on how you want to look at it. But what you're going to do is put the band over your shoulders, and then step down on the band right here. Now, it's hinging at the hip. So I'm standing on the band. I'm going to stand on one leg, hinge at the hip, and then pull myself back up. As you get good with your balance, you can hinge a little bit lower and then stand back up. Hinging down, squeezing the glute and the hamstring as you're coming up. You don't want to bend your knee too much, but you want to have a slight bend in it, keep that same bend the entire time, and then stand it back up. As you get stronger and more comfortable, you can use a heavier set for set band, but I think the green one gives you plenty of resistance to start. It's great as a warm-up, or if you want to make it nice and heavy, it's great as an accessory movement for your lower body workouts. The last posterior chain exercise we're going to do, we're also going to use the green set for set band. This is a really fun one to work on explosiveness and hip drive. You can use a heavier band again if you want, but for demonstration purposes and for you to get used to the movement, definitely use a green band or lighter. So we're going to start. You want to tie the band around the rack at about your hip level, a little bit lower than hip level. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now what you're going to do is you're going to straddle the band and then walk it out to where I have a flat back and a hip hinge with a slight bend in my knee. Okay? From here, both hands go onto the band. You're going to drive your hips through, squeezing your glutes all the way, and then let it pull you back. If that's too easy, you can take a step out. If it's too difficult, you can take a step back. Now, the purpose of this is to be explosive and then controlled back. Explosive out and controlled back. This is an awesome accessory to use if you want to train athletes. If you yourself are an athlete and want to train yourself to be a little bit more explosive, it helps with that triple extension. If you're doing a clean or if you're doing a sprint, it helps with that hip extension in your hip drive. Great posterior chain explosiveness developer. Love using the set for set bands for it. The green band is a great band to start at, but if I'm feeling nice and strong, then I'll progress to the gray band. Hope you enjoyed these videos.